Welcome to the number one show in America right now, the number one show for video gamers who want to be informed. That's right, this is the Game Informer Show, and I'm your host, Ben Reeves. Joined with me today, the ever lovely Brian Shea.
Hey, Ben.
How's it going?
It's okay.
Oh, no.
Acceptable.
Great, love the enthusiasm. Alyx Stadnick, how's it going?
I'm so good. I hope Brian Shea gets better because I'm excited to be here. I don't know.
And Liana Rupert, how are you?
I'm always doing great.
I'm glad you guys are here, and I'm glad everybody at home is listening because we got a great show. Later on this episode, at the end of the episode, we're going to run an interview with game director Scott Phillips. He's the game director on Immortals Fenyx Rising. He's a cool guy. I enjoyed the chat with him. Alyx, you happen to be there because you got to check out the game for our cover stories, so you had some interesting insight. I didn't know before the interview, or I learned right before the interview, that he worked on the Saints Row games.
Nice.
Which is cool. So we talked to him a little bit about that and how he brought that humor into the Immortals Fenyx Rising game. We're very, very different style of humor, by the way. Don't compare the two, but just what it's like to work on funny games. And then he talked about what it's like to design puzzles for games and how Immortals turned out, which I think it turned out well, which leads us on to our first segment of the show, the playlist. I've been playing it. Alyx, I think you've been playing it.
Correct.
Liana, have you been playing it?
Yes, I do. I really like Immortals.
And Brian, have you been playing this game?
Not since last week when I finished it, but yes, I played it all the way through and reviewed it. You can read that review on GameInformer.com.
Ooh.
Wow. What'd you give it? Just right off the bat.
I gave it a 9 out of 10. Hot 9.
Oof. Spicy.
Ooh.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think this is a 4-way playlist where we can all talk about the game at the same time, right?
Has this ever happened before?
This is a 4 up for all is what this is.
Ladies.
Brian, you're enjoying the game, right? You get a 9. I've been liking it a lot as well. What do you like about it specifically?
So I talked about it when we kind of had our cover story discussion where like the elevator pitch is kind of Assassin's Creed Odyssey team makes a game after playing a ton of Breath of the Wild. And I think that really shines through in like the way the game flows, the exploration. I think that like it took the best elements of exploration of a game like Odyssey and combines them with like the traversal of Breath of the Wild, the puzzle rooms of Breath of the Wild. And also like, they specifically mentioned like the combat. They wanted to be a little bit more like stylish and kind of more combo focused, like a game like Devil May Cry, and I think that shines through a lot. It doesn't quite reach like the heights of the Devil May Cry combat, which I mean, very few games do, but it is a very engaging combat system. You can do some really cool like powers. Like my power that I would always go to was the bird. He has like this dive bomb attack, which just basically rains death from above, and I spec'd my character so that she would have so the bird when he attacks replenishes your health, and then it takes stamina to use the bird. But when you attack with the sword that I had equipped, it would replenish my stamina. So I was just attacking and letting the bird attack at the same time, and I was consistently refilling both my health and my stamina by having those simultaneous attacks. And it was super fun, and you felt super empowered. And the puzzles are really, for the most part, very well made. They're creative, they're clever. Most of the time, they're well hinted. There are some things out in the world where I was just banging my head against the wall, like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? But like the ones that are like the challenge rooms, the vaults, those are very well made. They're very intentional in their design. I very rarely was just like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do, and just like stuck trying to figure it out, or like cheesing my way through it, like I did with some of like the open world environmental puzzles. So I think they did a very good job. I think they were mostly successful with the puzzles, but they were very successful with the combat and the open world exploration.
Yeah, I'm loving the game so far. It's a game, I don't think I've ever seen a game where another game inspiration on its sleeve quite as much as this game does with Breath of the Wild, because they said Breath of the Wild multiple times throughout development, so I shouldn't have been surprised. But then you play it and you're like, this should just be called like Immortal Fenyx of the Wild or something. It's just so much that game. And as much as I love Breath of the Wild, I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to play. At the same time, you're like, it's so close, and yet there's something slightly off about it. You're like, it's not quite the 10 that Breath of the Wild was, but I'm really loving it because it's there's enough of it there.
And I think that's okay though, right? I think it's okay. I think people use derivative as a negative term, but I think it's okay to take what other people have done and put your own spin on it. And for me, I know comedy is very subjective and hit or miss, but I think that's part of it. And I think that comedic tone is what makes me go, okay, I'm happy that this isn't full on stoic hero trying to save the world. Like I think that's what makes that even more okay for me, because I think it does the Breath of the Wild stuff pretty well without
Mhm.
having that Nintendo shine to it. Not that Ubisoft isn't capable of that, but you know what I mean? And it's just
And it's mostly polished. It's not like it's
Yeah.
unpolished. I think it's actually more polished than like an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
much
there were
so.
very few glitches that I encountered that were like of note anyway. Like, you know, there's an occasional thing where, oh, that guy's kind of going through that tree or whatever, but it's not like any kind of game breaking glitch that I encountered. Like I don't think I had any game breaking glitches.
I just love the fact that it like breaks the fourth wall. Like it was such a twist I wasn't expecting. It was so funny. Like I
With
mean,
the unreliable
obviously,
narrator.
yeah. Like and their whole the narrator's interaction with other characters. I don't know. It was just really funny. I expected a little bit of comedy just based on the nature of the art style. Like I thought they were gonna have a little bit more fun with it, but I didn't expect to laugh as many times as I did. And I also didn't expect the story to impact me as much as it did. Like again, I kind of and I'm gonna get not to crap on anybody's opinion or anything, but I tend to kind of shy away from games with that particular art style,
Mhm.
and not it just personal preference. Not that I think it's bad or anything. It doesn't usually appeal to me. Usually with the target audience, those types of art styles are targeted towards. But it was just really good, and the combat was so satisfying. Like you said with the combos of just being able to find the combos that work for your play style and then just to freaking just nail into freaking enemies like they're nothing. Like there was one
Mhm.
part, I forgot where I was, but there was one part where I accidentally pulled like a bunch of those big ogre things. And there was like 6 of them rampaging me at once. I was like, well, I'm gonna die. Like, there's no way I'm gonna survive this. And I did. And I was like, I just felt like such a beast. I was like, heck yeah, like screw you, lit liquors. Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that
I wasn't sure
like
if I even liked the action at first, but it's definitely grown on me.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
going
Oh, I think
to
we
your
got some.
point about the character, like the character designs, I think the world is gorgeous. And I think like, you know, it definitely wears its Breath of the Wild slash Ghibli inspiration on its sleeve. However, I still don't like the character models. I think they look like stupid puppets. Um, but yeah, the world itself is phenomenally beautiful, and I think that going back to the point that you made about like the humor, and I said this in my review, but like I think that we shouldn't understate how masterfully it's written in the terms of there's really awesome action happening in the story. Like there's all kinds of like amazing moments, like from an action perspective or like a serious tone perspective. And then there's humor woven within that. And neither tone feels out of place, which I think really is a testament to how like carefully it was written and how well the team how well the team approached like the tone of this game and like defining what the tone was and being able to bounce back and forth on both sides of the fence.
100%.
Yeah, because it's easy to be humorous and like be bad at being humor. Like I just kind of think of the most recent like Borderlands games where like there's kind of a push against that because like the humor is a little groan worthy, and I think for the most part, like the humor in this game, even if I'm not laughing, I'm at least kind of charmed by it. I'm kind of like, oh, it's kind of fun, whimsical. Like I see what you did there, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of amused by it.
Yeah. And jumping off of that too, weirdly, like Phoenix is just the actual character. I think she is my. I did a she build, a female, if you will. She is so charming, and it weirdly has one of my favorite treasure opening sequences when she does the
Oh, sure.
and then it like pops
Yeah.
open. I am so. I don't know if I just need a little bit more of that like positive goofiness in my life, but I'm so. It makes me excited to open those and like just be around her character in this
Yeah.
beautiful world that like underneath has some dark tones. The Greek gods were awful deities, but like they know that and they're self-aware and they play on that. And I love those moments of Zeus just going like, oh wow, yeah, I suck. Yeah, but it's fine. Everyone sucks. It's okay. So I think
Yeah.
they nail that.
She also has like I also picked a female character. She has like an interesting walk that I find is actually kind of funny. It looks kind of like they just took the male walk and like it's the same walk because it's so like weirdly wide and like it's kind of like a cowboy just got off its horse, you know? It's like a cartoon, can't quite walk right.
Yeah.
It's so
Penguin
funny
wobble.
looking though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not trying to make fun of anybody out there who walks like a cartoon character.
I'm right here,
I
Ben.
take that seriously. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
At least they didn't do like because I think with that awkward, like that art style, if they did like what a lot of developers do with female characters, where they try to make them all sexy, and I'm like, that. Can you imagine if they did that with that character
Doesn't
build?
work.
Like,
Yeah.
it would be so creepy.
Actually, I appreciate, that it's not super sexualized, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I feel like it would just come off really creepy.
How do you guys like the exploration in the game? Because there's a game where they don't do the Ubisoft thing where you get to the top of a mountain peak and then it just lays out 100 different icons for you to collect. You actually have to kind of like look out on the horizon and find stuff yourself. Like you kind of have a binocular view and you can tag stuff. And at first I was kind of like, this feels like you're trying to be Breath of the Wild and make it organic discovery, but then at the same time you're making me put all the markers on the map, which I don't know. It felt like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too. But then I don't know. I've warmed up to it a little bit, whereas I'm not really that annoyed by having to put the markers on there myself. And I do like the aspect of trying to like pan through the environment and just walk towards my next objective and see if anything grabs my attention.
It reminded me of another Ubisoft franchise with Ghost Recon, when you take the drones in and you tag in enemies that way. Like when the first time I ever did that, I was like, this is a weird comparison to make of Immortals and Ghost Recon, but it was very similar mechanic and very similarly done. And that's always my favorite mechanic. Even though I ignore it, I'll tag things in Ghost Recon and then just drive a Humvee into the wall anyway, with no care or anything, like chaos, go ham. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It was I kind of liked it just because I don't know if I liked it because it specifically reminded me of Ghost Recon, or if I just thought that was kind of a new spin. I feel like that was kind of a way to balance out, because I feel like this game does a really good job of being a good experience for younger players, but without dumbing it down to a point where older players won't want to play it. And I feel like that mechanic is one of those bends of like, okay, this is a very accessible game. There's a little bit, we want you to still feel challenged and, hungry to explore. So I kind of dug it.
Yeah. I think that point is why I'm enjoying it so much, because like if you would have told me at the start of the year that Ubisoft was going to release 3 open world games in the span of a month and the most time you're going to spend is in Immortals, I would have said you're crazy. But like it's not cumbersome. It's not it feels like it's very much at my leisure. If I want the ambrosia, I can go get it. Like I don't know, there's something like light about it that's not a bad thing. It feels like it feels respectful of my time in a way that something like Assassin's Creed that's like 150 hours is like is doing, you know what I mean? Like excuse me, getting choked up, as Ben Reeves likes to say. I like that. I feel like I can see the end of that tunnel, and like I like just doing a vault here and there and kind of taking my time with it, knowing that I'll still get to the end like this year, you know?
You don't feel
Yeah.
pressured to
Yeah.
play it.
Yeah.
I noticed when I took a little tiny break from Valhalla, I felt guilty. And I don't like it when games make me feel like, you know what I mean? Like I'm playing you for fun. Like I wasn't reviewing it. So I was like, I can actually just have fun with this. And then like, wait, you're making me feel guilty. Stop. Which obviously is at the developer's fault. I don't think that was intentionally built that way, but
When you log on, is Eivor like going like, well, I waited for you. Stood
like
me
that
up, huh?
disappointment meme where the
Yeah.
guys in the bleachers just being like, I
Yeah.
feel like that's you.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about Assassin's Creed as well while playing this game because that was the other like big game I was playing right before this one. And there's some Assassin's DNA in here, so there's some similarities, but they feel like such like differently, like it's like different takes on the open world genre in different ways. Where I'm kind of finding Immortals to be very refreshing, whereas Valhalla was kind of like, all right, this is exactly what I expect it to be. It's kind of like, video game comfort food or whatever. I know exactly what I'm getting. Whereas Immortals is kind of a fresh take, at least for Ubisoft, I should say. So I'm enjoying it on that aspect alone. And I'm trying to decide like which one do I like better. I don't know where it's going to land on my like top 10 list, whether it's going to be above or below Valhalla. I'm still trying to sort that out.
Wow.
Brian, you brought up one other thing, the puzzles that I was kind of curious to talk about. I like them. A lot of times they don't feel like puzzles in my mind. I'm never having to solve anything. Rarely am I having to like, oh, what is this? Usually it's like explore the environment and find the switch kind of a thing. Does that seem fair? Like, I feel like that's a piece that's missing for me is like the puzzles aren't like real puzzles. So I don't
No,
feel that rewarded. Usually I'm just like hunting something down.
I think in the open world areas, like the environmental puzzles, that's totally accurate. Like I think that a lot of times it is just, all right, I need to find this blue sphere and put it on the like board. But I think the vaults have a lot of puzzles that are actual puzzles. Like, you have to try to find the way to navigate this maze without like falling into the toxic gas, or like there's all kinds of different like ways to move this box without having the laser destroy it, and like setting the switch up properly so like the wind is blowing in this direction but it's not blowing this other part over. And there's a lot of actual proper puzzles, I think, that you find especially in like the god vaults, which are the end of the storyline, like the god storylines. Like that's how they kind of culminate, is with these long god vaults that take like an hour to complete. They definitely have some like legit puzzles in them.
Yeah, those feel like Zelda dungeons, is I
They
guess
do.
what I would call them. Yeah, I enjoyed those. I've done like 2 of those so far. Yeah, it's been a good time. I'm enjoying my time with it. Did
Same.
you feel like it was pretty solid all the way through? It sounded like maybe you're getting frustrated a little bit there near the end.
The end, there's like you're climbing up a mountain, or that's one of the final areas, and it does kind of the thing where like if you veer too far off course, you will freeze to death, and that's just not super fun in a game that is so focused on exploration. I know they're trying to kind of focus you and like you have to solve puzzles to open up the next area, but it was just kind of a bummer, and yeah, wasn't a fan of that area too much.
I just remember you
That's fair.
talking about it, and I felt so bad for you because you were just like, I don't know what to do. What do I don't want to. I don't even want to do this right now. I've loved this game so much to this point, but I don't even want to finish it. But then you persevered. It's a life lesson.
There you go.
Perseverance.
Like Odysseus, you persevered, and here you are, conquering the arrow.
Now I'm shooting arrows.
That's right. Well, yeah, that's Immortals. Any final thoughts? It's a good game. It's a
Don't
9 out of 10.
Yeah, don't sleep on it. I think a lot of people are gonna brush this aside because of those comparisons, but like this has surprised me in a way I wasn't expecting. And maybe not now because whatever, if you're playing AC and like you're excited for Cyberpunk, I get it, but like play this game. I think it's really fun. I think it's a good refresher.
Yeah,
It's
definitely get
surprise
around to it at some point. Brian, you've been playing anything else?
Yeah, I'm playing Yakuza or Yakuza. I used to say it
Oh.
Yakuza, and then people correct me that it was Yakuza, and now I'm playing it, and all the actors say Yakuza, and I'm having a hard time switching back.
It's Yakuza.
Yeah, I know that, but everybody corrected me to the point that I just submitted, and now I can't switch back. I cannot
Well,
trick
it's like
my
when
brain
people
with that.
call in Japanese, they say Hideo Kojima. It's Hideo Kojima or Kojima. Like there's no Japanese people don't put that emphasis on it. It's Hideo.
But now it's
Kojima.
impossible to fix my brain.
I was gonna say, wait a minute, hold on. Yakuza.
Yakuza. Yeah.
Yakuza.
Yakuza.
Which, yeah.
Yakuza. I
So
don't
yeah, I'm playing Yakuza like a
Whoa,
dragon.
Alex, hold on. Alex, you're speaking Japanese.
Nani?
How are you liking the game, Brian?
I'm really liking it. I think the turn-based system is pretty solid, but the story is awesome, and like the characters are amazing. They're some of my favorite characters of the entire year, and I am just really enjoying kind of the change-ups that they've pulled from other Yakuza games. Now I have to like really struggle to say it every single time. Yeah, other Yakuza
Like
games.
a dragon.
Well, not everybody can be fluent like Alex, I get it.
takes years of practice.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's definitely a kind of a different flavor of Yakuza game from what I'm used to. I was concerned going into it. I didn't know how I would take to a new hero like Ichiban Kasuga, but I'm really enjoying him. I think he's awesome. He's not better or worse than Kiru, but I think that like I said before, it's just a different flavor, and I am here for both of them.
He's his own character. I'm with you. I was kind of worried. Like Kiro is one of my like harem of video game boyfriends that I love. And I was like, nobody can replace Kiro. Like, come on, like that's my dude. So I was actually, when they first announced it, I wasn't as excited as everybody else was, even though I'm like a hardcore Yakuza fan. And I was like, I don't know, I don't think. And then the more I kept seeing, I was like, this dude is a dork. I feel it. Like I'm loving it. And he's such a beacon of good. Like he doesn't, especially, I don't know, when you do things with social media and you see just a lot of toxicity and people judging people without knowing literally anything. And to have him just be like, no, like everything's good. Like it gets him in trouble sometimes, but in his world, everything's rainbows and puppy dogs until you prove to him otherwise. And I like that. It's a purity that we have as kids that we lose as adults. And I think it's good to have that blended into your worldview. And I feel like Ichiban like really reminds you it's okay to be kind. And, he is associated with a lot of, uh, you know, communities that kind of get the short end of the stick in the view of society, like, sex workers and the poor, the impoverished, and he doesn't care. He doesn't. Did you treat me right? Are you doing good? Are you happy? Like that's all. And I just think that's super valuable. I feel like he's a hero of 2020, especially this year where everybody's already pushed to the max because of 2020 is very nature and everybody's emotions are high, anxieties are high, the future's
Wait, why is
uncertain.
that?
Yeah, did something
Everything
happen this year?
sucks.
Are you guys feeling tough too? So I'm feeling. I just can't put my finger on it. Like, what's the
Yeah,
difference?
it's super subtle, totally easy to miss.
I agree with you. Yeah, I've been enjoying the game too. I like a few hours in. Actually, probably 10 hours in at this point. I played Yakuza 0, and one thing I forgot about the series is just how story heavy it is. Where there's
Mhm.
long stretches where I just put my controller down because I'm just like watching a cutscene for half an hour, and I do like the story though. Like I'm kind of into it. There's some like stuff where you're like, that feels a little weird, but like overall, like I'm still really into it. Uh, and even though I'm 10 hours in, I feel like I'm just barely starting to scratch the surface on how the combat works. I don't know if
Oh,
you guys are further in than I am. Do you guys feel like the combat actually gets pretty interesting? Do you like the turn-based action?
it changes a lot. If you're only 10 hours in, yeah. It's because you get new characters. You get different characters and like hers is she blows hearts and charms the enemy. I don't know, like it gets silly. It doesn't take itself seriously. But I will say the turn-based confused me a little bit. Not that like the mechanics were confusing, but it's so different than the usual combat for this franchise.
I like it more, honestly. I've always kind of been iffy on the Yakuza, like brawler combat, just because it gets kind of samey. Like every single battle, aside from like the boss fights, felt like the same at a certain point, and this suffers from that to a degree as well. But you also have to deal with all like the different weaknesses that you get from all the normal turn-based RPGs. So I like it in that regard. The side effect of that is the boss fights don't feel as epic, in at least to the point that I'm at, in this, than they do in the other games. Like the ending of
Yeah.
Yakuza 0 is so like just over the top and like just just these wild fight scenes that feel so cinematic, and I don't get that from any of the boss fights to this point in Like a Dragon.
I could see that. Ben, I got a question for you. Did you fight the big men in diapers yet? You would
I
know.
don't think so.
I want to hear what you have to say when you fight them. It's probably my favorite fight in the entire game.
I might say, look at those men in diapers.
How big they are. Why are they in diapers?
They're so big.
Where do you buy those diapers? I need them.
It makes me so happy. And they're fighting over baby powder and baby formula. I don't it's maybe it's only
Can't blame
funny to
'em.
me, but it's beautiful.
Brian,
It's
you think you'll
art.
go all the way to the end with this game?
I'd like to. Right now, it's just a matter of trying to finish as many games as possible before I have to finalize my top 10 list for end of
Yeah,
year. So I still have
for
I'm
sure.
like an hour into Valhalla, and then of course we have another big game coming out next week,
The medium?
the Medium.
Oh, wait.
Can't wait to dig into that one. Alex, what about you? What have you been playing recently?
Oh, Ben Reeves. Ben. What am I going to do? I was feeling good about my top 10. I was kind of locking some spots in. I was like, okay, feeling good. And then Half-Life Alyx came and just knocked down my door and grabbed me by the head. And I don't know what to do with myself.
Well, you've had like most of the year to play that game. I think I've been bugging you since like May. Like,
Correct.
hey,
They
this
just
game's good.
You have yourself to blame.
I moved. They couldn't find my address. It was a whole thing. It may sound hyperbolic, but this is unlike an experience I've had playing a video game. The sheer ability to manipulate the world around you is something we've dreamed of as gamers. You know what I mean? And I feel like Half-Life Alyx does a lot to touch on that. And they strike that balance from the very get-go when you walk into that room and it's like, oh, there's markers right there. Can I pick up the marker? Can I not only pick up the markers but draw on the world? You know what I mean? It's like little things like that, but it was like, it's just surreal when you actually do it.
Yeah. It's they do a good job too in like those opening moments of they have the good spectacle stuff, like the walker walking over your head, and you're like, oh, I'm in the Half-Life world, and like it's all very real and here. But then also like the super mundane stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's a bottle there, you can throw the bottle and it shatter. You can like look at the, liquid in the bottle, and it's just dumb stuff like picking up, like you said, markers and
Yeah.
drawing on a whiteboard.
I
You're
tried
like,
to.
I'm actually doing this. I'm actually drawing.
Yeah.
It's so stupid, but it works
But it's
because it's in
amazing.
VR.
Yeah, and I tried to the bottle. I tried to like break it off to see if I could actually like drink out of it. I couldn't. It just shattered it. But it still broke in my hand. Like it was incredible. But it kind
Sliced your hand up.
Yeah, yeah, for real. But on a thematic level, I'm only through chapter 3. I think chapter 4 out of 8. I think I saw 7 or 8. It's reminding me why I love Half-Life and why I loved that series and that world that it created. And I'm so excited to see where it takes Alyx and the rest of that family. Russell is hilarious. Like laugh out loud. We were talking about Immortals. Immortals is great. He is genuinely hilarious in a way that, no shade on Valve, but I wasn't sure if they could hit that level because of so many writers and because of how many years they haven't really put out a game. I think Portal 2 was the last example of them at the apex of their humorous writing ability, right?
I think it's the funniest game of the year. Like I can't think of another game that made me laugh as much. It's also like probably one of the scariest games of the year. It's an interesting polar opposites there, but they do a good mix.
I was slacking Ben. The head crab, I already hated that thing. They were already creepy. They're my least favorite video game antagonist now because that sensation of them jumping on your face in VR, I literally felt like I was in a movie where I did that thing. You know what I mean? Like panicking to figure out how to get it off. And like you guys have seen me play Phasmophobia, and that game is scary and I get scared. But there's a genuine level of fear that comes with this by inherently it being in VR. And it's something that makes you sweat, but I was like, I have to get through this. And I don't think I would if that game play mechanics weren't so satisfying. That ability to flick the wrist, get whatever you want to come to you, and just obviously you can't feel that weight, but with the rumble, there is that just level of immersion that like I said,
it feels tactile.
Yeah, I've never experienced that before.
Yeah, even though you're not physically holding the object, it definitely feels like you're interacting with the world.
Yeah.
And you're just talking about the head crabs. There's those like metal head crabs, or they're not metal, but they're like armored.
The armored
something.
one. Oh, I hate him so much.
You basically, the only weak spot is like their mouth. So you basically have to wait until they're lunging at you so you can shoot at their mouth. Like they do a good job of like playing with the mechanics of like, we know this thing is scary, but at the same time, the best way to defeat it is to wait until it's actually attacking you. Yeah. And then I'm glad you're playing it. Like some of the best stuff is like right near the end of that game.
Good.
So
yeah,
hopefully you'll make it to the end. And
I wish more people realize like what an impact this game has. Like a lot of people are so upset that it's just VR only. There is a VR less mod, but I wouldn't recommend it. But that's why they did it this way. Like I think a lot of the younger gamers too, and not to, I promise this won't be a big long spiel, but a lot of the younger gamers don't really know. Like they've heard of the impact that the first Half-Life and Half-Life 2 had on gaming, but they don't know. And I just remember that Half-Life changed the entire industry. And I don't think people understand exactly what that means. BioShock Infinite's director said that BioShock Infinite would not have existed without Half-Life. Half-Life completely changed the game for how developers looked at the worldscape, how they approached game development and level design, how they approached shooters. It changed everything. There are so many games out to this day that people don't realize that we have Half-Life to thank for those being into existence. And they were never going to do a Half-Life 3 until they knew that they could do something that would have a comparable relativity and impact on the industry. And that's what the VR did. And you hit the nail on the head by saying that of nothing can compare to a head crab jumping on your face, because we all know those creatures. They all get under our skin. We don't like them. They're iconic in nature, just by, again, the impact that Half-Life 1 had. But to take that to, and like they took like, we set the bar here, we want to put the bar up here, and then like basically take a crap on the bar below us. Like they were not going to do another Half-Life, and that's why it was kind of futile to keep being like Half-Life 3, Half-Life 3. because they were never going to do it unless they knew that they could top what they've done in the past. And while it doesn't top what they've done in the past for everyone because of the price range of VR and it's not as super financially accessible as we would like it to be, for those that did play it, they can see like this is why.
Yeah,
this is why they did VR.
While I know I can't play it right away on the Quest, I'm getting a Quest. It's just a matter of when, not if, at this point, because this and like Super Hot and Google Earth, but that doesn't. I'm not counting that in this. But those are the.
Beat Saber,
it's great.
Supernatural.
Beat Saber's great.
Yeah, I especially with I need to be healthier in my life just in general, and I think Beat Saber is something that can help me do that. But on a funnier level, to that point, Liana, with the head crabs, like I made the mistake of like picking one up. I was like, this can't be that bad now that it's dead, right? It's so weird and fleshy, and the graphics in that thing is like, and I flipped it over. I was like, never again. I never want to get anywhere close to these. Last point I'll make before we move on from it. Just you talked about Liana like wanting to top themselves, and that was always the running thing. Was like Valve is only going to release a Half-Life product if they think they can make an impact, and like the way they understand it and the level design, where they not only like encourage you to use those tools, but then dissuade you from using them in some of those earlier sections is incredible. And like there's a specific level that I just got through where there's red barrels everywhere, and if you shoot like any of them, you're dead. And just how they manipulate that and force you through this narrative in an amazing way is a very special experience that I cannot wait to get through. It is,
yeah,
it's wild, man.
VR is crazy. I don't know. I forgot what it was called. I did a VR game not too long ago where you had to fly. I can't remember what it was called. It was Choose Game. But when I was in the military, I was actually in a plane crash, and it was like the most terrifying. Like I was pretty sure I was gonna die. Like I was like so sad because I couldn't tell anybody bye. I didn't have my cell phone because we were going to deployment.
Yeah.
And I just remember like the sheer terror I had. And I never, people say like when you get scared to that point, like you just kind of get acceptance. I was praying to everything out there. I was like cry. I was so scared. I threw up when I finally landed because when we finally, made it touch on, and we did a VR game, and it was so immersive, and the plane crashed in the game, and I threw up everywhere.
My God. Oh,
wow.
My husband like walked in, and I was like sobbing, and he's like, "What happened?" And then he like saw the game. I was like, he's like, "Oh no!"
Oh no, yeah.
Like VR is so. I can't wait until the day where it reaches that next apex of technology where it's because Supernatural is really close. Like you go to like these different locations and you do workouts, but like there's one workout where you can work out on top of an active volcano, and it looks so realistic, like you're there. And I don't know, I can't wait to see, but just not for games like that.
Hold on, back up. What is this game? Supernatural? It's like a workout game? Like
yeah,
a supernatural workout game?
I don't know why it's called Supernatural because it's got nothing to do with the supernatural. It's very weird, but it's you get like a personal trainer, and then they work with you on different. It's kind of like Beat Saber, like you do like those, and you have to hit objects and the other thing. But like you go to different locations all around the world. Like there's one in New Zealand that's like absolutely gorgeous. And for me, like I was never interested because it's it's a little bit expensive when you get the full workouts. But like with COVID and everything and not traveling, I'm used to traveling every month, and then to go 8 months without traveling was kind of weird. And it's been an escape. It's been nice. Like sometimes I'll just go out and just sit on a volcano, as one is wont to do.
Interesting. Okay.
There you go. Cool.
Wild, man.
Well, aside from VR, you been playing anything else, Liana?
Still on my Destiny kick. I've run the raid probably 30 times now, the new one. But I've been back on the Phasmophobia train because of the new prison level.
Oh no!
Terrifying. Alyx, we need to reprieve our Phasmophobia.
Please don't make me. Please don't make me do it.
No, it's just I know I'm kind of at it. I'm playing one game that I can't talk about right now, but other than that, I've kind of devolved back into Phasmophobia because that new level, I think it's everything that Asylum is supposed to be. Asylum is this very like when you look at it, you're like, oh, this is the scariest level, but it's actually not because you go to it 10 times and you're only going to find a demon once, so you're just kind of walking around. And then eventually you just have to pack up your trailer and leave. And it's like kind of annoying because you can hear things and it's spooky, but you don't ever get that payoff. But the prison level is everything you think it's going to be. And then you actually have like there's new demons. Like there's like this child demon thing it's a lot of nope. It's very scary. And that's been my obsession. That and Among Us. I'm so sad because I finished Yakuza. I finished Valhalla. I finished I don't know, I finished all these games I was looking forward to. So I'm kind of just going back on the ones that I'm enjoying with friends. Like Kim and I have been playing Among Us like crazy. That's been our vice of choice. But yeah, Phasmophobia is super cheap too, so it's really easy to play. And VR, but I haven't tried that one yet. I'm too scared to.
Great. Well, I think that wraps up our playlist. So, what do you guys say we go answer some emails?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, we're back, everybody. We're going to do some community emails. Game Informer Show's community email section. You guys ready for that?
Oh yeah.
Got Brian, Anna, Alex. We're all still here. The gang's still here. We have, these are emails people send in, podcast@gameinformer.com. They send us questions. They send us character rankings if you want. They send us recommendations for what you consider required reading for video games. We take it all, podcast@gameinformer.com, and then we read it here on the air. So this first one, Chris from Alexandria, they write in, they say, just want to say how grateful I am for you guys and for always having a fun time and for the perfect ranking of Bubsy. They said it.
There it
All right.
is. Yeah.
I guess we nailed it first time. All right. Thanks, Chris. The reason I'm writing in is because of the PS5 purchase woes and how people like myself have the money but still cannot get their hands on a PS5. After many failed attempts at securing one myself, I only find reports of scalpers getting over $3,000 for it. I'm just baffled at how broken the system is of ordering systems online, and I'm curious why retailers or even Sony aren't just adopting a pay now and receive later as stock arrives approach. Personally, I feel better knowing I was at least in line for a console rather than fighting other eager users and bots especially. While I understand Sony wants to be the desirable, hard to find system in the news, wouldn't it be better to have a limited number of PS5s in the hands of PlayStation 5 users who are really excited to have it, rather than numerous resellers on the internet? A frustrated gamer. Thank you, Chris, for writing in. It was a long email, but I think it was a point well taken. What do you guys think? We experienced the same problem because, like, a lot of us had to be there day of the announcement, like right when pre-orders dropped, and like we were like struggling to get pre-orders ourselves, and we work in the industry.
Yeah.
There were two different approaches I think that they could take to make the system better, which, there's a lot of industries that follow the same approach, the same model that Sony and Microsoft have both used in this, which, like the sneaker industry is notorious for this, where it's like, all right, we're dropping at 10 a.m. on the sneakers app, and then there's just zero chance for you to get one. Some places have started doing like a lottery, which is marginally better, but still, I think that the better approach would be, and trust me, I know that the music industry and the concert scene has its own problems, like, a $20 ticket inflating to be like a $65 ticket because of all the hidden fees. But they have a system in place where you can you get waitlisted, or you get kind of like put in a room, and it's like, all right, these are your tickets. Now you have like 15 minutes to complete checkout. Otherwise, we're releasing this. And I feel like that would be a better way. So, like, that you have a PlayStation 5 in your cart, it is yours, and you have 10 minutes or 15 minutes to enter your information. And if you
30
don't
seconds.
by then, it's no longer your PlayStation 5, and it's going to like the next person who's ready to get it. Like, that stock is held. So otherwise, you're gonna get what you've been getting this whole time. Where, all right, I got a PlayStation 5 in my cart. Check out. This item is no longer in stock. Sorry.
I don't understand why that happens. Like, why isn't that the thing everybody does? Because yeah, I had it so many times where it was in my cart, I went to pay, and just just kidding, we don't have this anymore. Like,
it's very frustrating.
Let me put it in my cart.
I mean, if you were really there at Target or whatever retailer you were using, and you had a PlayStation 5 in your cart, that is the way it works. It is yours unless you put it back. And
yeah, what if the cashier took it and like put it behind the counter? Is like, oh, sorry, you don't have it anymore.
Sorry,
it's not in your
no
cart.
longer in stock.
There will be blood.
No, it's no longer in stock. Sorry, buddy.
That's hilarious.
The other way I could see it happening would be like a wait list. Like, you see, like when Tesla releases a new model of its car, it, like, people are like paying what frustrated gamer or whatever his name was wrote in and said, like, a wait list. Like, you pay to be on a list, and then as soon as like you have like an estimated date, like, all right, you're going to get your PlayStation 5 January 2021. And then like as it gets closer, it's like, all right, it's coming January 8th, 2021. And then like I'm on this list to get a PlayStation 5, and you put a deposit or something like that, almost like a pre-order system, but not quite, because it's like there's a way to make it so that there's order within the chaos that is existing right now. Because right now it's just pure chaos, just like, oh my god, Amazon has 25 PlayStation 5s.
Go, yeah.
Yeah. Like you drop your breakfast that you're carrying to go pre-order.
I don't know if you guys are like me, but I have just like so many friends. Just so many friends.
All the friends.
So many friends. I can't even count them. How many friends I have? I'm just not lonely at all. But I have like a bunch of friends who are like asking me, "Where do I get a PlayStation, man? Because you got connections, right? You got it." It's like, man, I had to like scrape and fight online to get mine too. Like, I don't know how to help you. I'm sorry. Like, it's just a frustrating broken system.
And I think Sony is trying to do better by people, because they have a queue system on their direct site. But I think the crappy reality is, like, Target and Walmart, like, that would take an investment on their part, and they're going to sell out regardless. So it's like, I don't know what motivation is there for them, especially it's every 7 years. Which is, I'm not justifying, but I think that's the reality on why this is such a heinous process. It's the same with sneakers too. It's like, I don't think they care, because they're always going to sell out, which I hate. I have missed on the sneakers app every time, and I've been trying for the last 5 years. Like, I can't get, I don't know what I have to do. And like, the whole scalping market is infuriating. It is so frustrating, but I don't know unless Microsoft and Sony behoove the retailers to change something. I don't know what's going to change, if it will.
I'm really salty about this because I managed to get a place. I got my Xbox fine, no problem, but I got the PlayStation 5 from Walmart, and they canceled it immediately. So then a friend of mine was like, well, I got a couple specifically because he's got really good internet, and he always does this. He'll resell them to friends at cost, or like $10, like cover the shipping, and I'll send it to you. And I did that, and I got his, and somebody stole it off of my porch with supposed proof of delivery, but USPS won't give me the proof of delivery, which is kind of a whole other thing that's been weird. But like, he was like, I'm in a really bad spot financially, so I can't really give you the money back, which I understand. And that's the risk you get when you buy from friends. So I ate that $500 cost. I'm a journalist. I don't make a lot of money. It's like, I just want a PlayStation 5. And then every time I try to get, and we need it for work. Like, we need it for work. And so it's just like, I don't know. It's really frustrating. I would like to see them retailers implement a system like it's a question system, because there's all these bots that just go through the captchas. They can go through the captchas now. They can go through the little things. But I feel like there should be a series of questions. I feel like Microsoft and Sony could maybe give them, like, implement this as your checkout, like a code, or I don't know how it freaking works. I'm not a tech person, but like, give them, like, ask these specific questions. How long have you been playing Xbox? Like, it could be simple, like, how long have you been playing Xbox? What color was this? Or what's a staple? Silly questions that pertain to gaming that makes it a little bit more fun and maybe doesn't infuriate people as much. But it's an extra process that bots can't overpass, where if they can, it might take them a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And that gives, I don't know, I feel like that would give people a chance. And then I feel like I like Shay's idea of making it like a staggered waiting room area for all retailers, because my thing was, there were so many times where I would make it to checkout. It wasn't saying it was out of my cart, but then the website would crash. And then by the time it came back up, it's like, sorry, there's no more stock left. And it's really stupid, because I get it. The server overloads. You got all these people. You got 7 years of wait for these systems. Obviously, there's a high demand, but this. So like, and there are ways to overgo that. Like, stagger it. Like, control the input coming into these servers, and you might have a little bit more control of this experience. But they have no reason to do that, because they get the money regardless.
Yeah.
And there's nothing stopping these scalpers from making that much money. Facebook network market, Facebook like loves it. They're like, yeah, this is engagement. Sell your crappy stuff and overinflated products, because that means you're on our app. And it's just right now we're in a spot where we reward the behavior because they profit off of it. And it just sucks, man. it's especially with how expensive consoles are, regardless. They shouldn't be this hard to get. But I feel like if they were to implement something that would require a personal touch, whether it be questions, I feel like CAPTCHA isn't cutting it anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you think you can fix the world, let us know. Write in podcast@gameinformer.com. Until then, I'll just keep reading emails like this one from Alex from Ontario, Canada. Says, "Good day, Alex and other non-Alexes.
Hello, Alex.
My question is, yeah, hello. Can I have a job at Game Informer? My qualifications are 1, my name is Alex. End of list."
Come on down.
Oh, you hear that,
For a
Alex?
while
I
there,
guess-
we were hiring all Matts and Jeffs on the spot, but now it's
Alex's, yeah.
Yeah, now it's all Alex. We had a couple of Bens for a while. We had a ton of Matts. Used to have multiple Andys, but yeah, now it's Alex. There's a run on Alex's. We got to get them while we can. Alex goes on to say, somewhat recently, EA's UFC game came under fire for adding obtrusive ads about a month after it came out. So, like, the ads were added after reviews, after the first month release, which they disabled. And according to Alex, says that EA claims it was just a bug, and that's why it wasn't working. Some speculate that the ads were left out intentionally so that they wouldn't be mentioned in reviews or affect the scores. This isn't the first time this has happened, particularly in a sports game. Other games have left out microtransactions or premium currencies in the first day or week, only to add them in shortly after launch. So, do you guys buy into the theory that this happened and they were left out unintentionally? Or if so, what realistically can be done about it? And do you guys go back and add snippets to your reviews when this happens?
Well, the thing about the UFC game, if I'm not recalling incorrectly, it was an ad for The Boys season 2 on Amazon Prime. Like in between rounds, they would like kind of like flash a screen that's like The Boys season 2 streaming now on Amazon Prime. That didn't come out until long after the review. So it wouldn't have been implemented until then. That said, there were no ads like that when the review was happening. So it's entirely possible they didn't want to do that for the sake of that. But that's not even the most egregious thing in sports. Like I was playing NBA 2K21, and that game is just riddled with microtransactions as it is. But there was a sequence where the commentators had a full minute and a half tangent about, oh, the players on the sidelines are drinking Gatorade. It's so important to stay hydrated when you're playing at a high level like this. Gatorade, it's the best. It's just like, and there's action.
You don't like Gatorade, Brian?
He's more of a
Oh,
Powerade
it's great.
guy.
I'm so hydrated. This is not water. This is not water at all. This is Gatorade.
Oh, clear Gatorade.
It really was like that Wayne's World sequence where, you know, he's wearing like the Pepsi hat and the was it Pizza Hut shirt or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's just gross. Like it's even worse than the UFC thing that he's described. But yeah, that said, like it's kind of a bummer that like, you know, we get all of these ads like in a premium game like that. Like you know, that the stuff that you see on NBA 2K21 or what they were describing in UFC 4 is something you would see typically in like a free to play game, which is why I understand people are upset. But that said, like, you know, it's become normal in premium stuff as well. Like, it's the same thing if I buy a UFC pay per view. Every round has an advertisement, and then the octagon itself is just plastered with logos of other companies like sponsors. And it's like, why did I just pay $70 for this pay per view if they're getting all this ad revenue? And the answer is nobody gives a shit. So it just keeps happening. So that's what happened when people like made a stink about the ads in UFC 4. Is they said, oh, people don't like this, so they removed it. And I don't buy that it was a bug. But yeah,
I feel like with EA,
I think people probably care. Yeah, it's just a matter of like, is it working or not? Are they able to get away with it? Are they able to make money on it? Because if that's the case, they'll keep happening.
I think with EA though, it's a special thing. Like just like EA Play, people are always like, "Oh, they suck at doing their E3 showcases." They don't. They're doing their E3 showcases aren't for you. They're for the investors. And when you look at it through that lens, their EA Play showcases are actually genius. If you look at it through an investor's lens, which is a whole other conversation, we're not going to see a change until the investors step in and say this need to change. And if the investors are profiting off of that, it's not going to change. So either gamers as a whole need to come together and boycott it and put their money where their mouth, or, you know, their wallet where their mouths are, and don't buy. Then the investors are going to step in and be like, okay, people, this is now affecting pre-orders. This is now affecting day launch purchases. This is now affecting week of purchases, which affects their line of vision. If that happens, then yes, I think things will change. But until the investors are impacted, EA is not going to change what they're doing. And we're seeing that right now with the current FIFA lawsuit that's going on right now. because this is the same thing that happened with Star Wars Battlefront 2. People uncovered files in the Star Wars Battlefront 2 game files that literally showed that they were targeting and changing the settings in a multiplayer match to make people, with the verbiage, make players feel reliant upon microtransactions. And they were buying these pay-to-win microtransactions to influence how the game plays for them and advancing further. There was that big whole backlash. EA apologized. They took it out of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 is now thriving. It was great. It was fine. Everybody moved on. But they went through all of that, and then here they are doing it again. These three gamers it's in California court right now. The court case went to courts in November, and they're alleging that they are specifically using an AI technology to scale the difficulty levels, which is not, it hasn't been ruled yet. So I'm not saying this is actually what's happening. This is just what the court is deciding right now. But it's that they're purposely using an AI technology to scale the difficulty levels of the game to make you buy the microtransactions that will improve your performance. That being said, that's the kind of greedy behavior that publishers, when they're very, very, very intertwined with the investor relationship, that's the kind of things that they have to think of. And if they're willing to do that to push loot boxes and at least it's transparent. But it's to me, it's very predatory. I think when you're paying, if they want to do ads, that's fine. But then you need to cut your game cost by half.
Come on, investors. Can't we just go back to buy low, sell high? I think we can all agree on that, right?
It just it really bothers me, not because the ads, they're not, in the end of the day, they're not that big of a deal. They're 10 seconds? Who cares? But it's the practice behind it. You're going to charge full price for a game, especially if the price is going to hike up to $70 and then you're still going to do that. Do I think that it was intentionally left out of reviews? Yeah, absolutely. The point that you have of the boys, that's a very, very good point. But these decisions to place in-game ads don't happen overnight. There was a placement. I'm guessing
they bought that placement.
That placement was already sectioned out. It was just a matter of who's going to be the highest bidder to go into that. And I know this because I did the marketing for a long time on the industry side. So like that was already sectioned out. And if that wasn't included with even a placeholder, like if they wanted to be totally transparent with reviewers, they would have put a placeholder here. Like Larian, they're kind of funny with their placeholders, but like they would put a placeholder of ad goes here. Or they would give a note in the reviewer packet of reviewers, note, this will be coming in a post-up, but they didn't. And that makes me think that it was intentionally left out because there was no transparency with reviewers. And if you're not going to be transparent, we can't know what's going on. And therefore, and then that just further perpetuates the problem of a lot of gamers tend to think that reviewers are bought off, which is absolutely not a thing. But when things like that happen, I mean, we don't know what we don't know. And if you're not going to even give a slight heads up or indication that something like that might be coming down the line, you've got an issue. And there's a big broken lane of communication, and investors need to step in because this is really, it's not going to impact sales. People are going to buy those games as we see. The sports games have been the same for years and people are still buying them. But
yeah, interesting thoughts.
Angry.
Definitely sounds like it's a tough nookie to crack. That's a word.
Nookie?
All right.
Nookie. Wait, what'd you say?
Did all for the nookie. Way to bring the vibe back up, Ben. This is why you're the host.
Yeah, what do you guys say?
I don't know what context we're talking about.
So next email.
Yeah.
All right, Dan Phantom writes in. They say, "Salutations, crew. I hope you guys are doing well. I have a two-piece question for the group. Do you think that if the new consoles were going to be scarce this year, if they were not going to be scarce this year, like if they had not been scarce, do you think that there would be more new gen exclusives instead of cross gen? So we get a lot of cross gens this year. Like, do you think if like consoles were just all over the place, it wasn't hard to get one, do you think there'd be more exclusives for the new systems? I do realize ultimately that Microsoft's stance of games for everybody is the way, but I wonder if there would have been more launch exclusives when you think about the fact that devs will eventually make only PS5/Xbox Series X exclusives. What do you guys think? This is an interesting thought experiment. I don't think we can totally know, but I have my suspicion.
I think that we probably would see a few more. I think that, it's kind of the old thing of like developers were hesitant to jump in with both feet on like VR when it was coming out because they weren't sure how many people were actually going to buy VR, or Kinect, for example, if you want to go a little bit further back, where, Microsoft was kind of hoping to jumpstart Kinect development by making sure that every Xbox One came with a Kinect, which obviously backfired. I think that if Sony and Microsoft both came out like, hey, next gen consoles, we've got you covered. No worries. Like, we're going to have 1 billion of them in November. I think developers, like a few more developers, would have probably just gone full steam ahead on a next gen exclusive. But I also think that historically, like in the recent generations anyway, we've seen a lot of cross gen games. The Assassin's Creed games that came out at launch of Xbox One were also on Xbox 360, or at least they had like a counterpart. Like Assassin's Creed Unity came out and it also had Assassin's Creed Rogue for Xbox 360. Watch Dogs was cross-gen. All kinds of third-party games come out across both generations. It's only the games that are specifically taking advantage of the technology of the new systems. Like, what was it, like Zoo Tycoon used the Kinect, or Rise was like, all right, this can only be done on Xbox One's powerhouse. Same thing we're seeing this time around. Like, could Demon Souls have come out on PS4? Probably, but other than that, like Astro's Playroom definitely couldn't have been a PS4 game. Miles Morales is cross-gen, so I think that like the big ones that are next gen exclusive, aside from Astro's Playroom, could have been on last gen. But I think that we're seeing that because there's a few different factors at play for why we're seeing so many cross gen games. But this isn't something that is completely new.
It's not, and that's why I kind of think that even if we had an abundance of new consoles, I think we'd probably still see a lot of cross-gen games, just because you're able to do it now. Back, PS1 to 2, like that leap, you couldn't make those games cross-generational, or even 2 to 3. Like, they were such different architecture. Like, developing a game was so different across those systems. Where now it's easier to make a game and make it on the new console, and like have it be basically the same game, just looks better. So that's kind of one element of it. Another thing is like those early launch games are usually poor quality. You're also taking a hit. Like if you're a developer and you're like, I'm going to put launch game out, you have a smaller install base. So you have to sort of like take a hit and a risk of putting a game out on launch. And usually those games have not sold as well. So like this way, if you're cross generational, it's kind of a way to like have your cake and eat it too, right? I think it's the second time I've said that recently, but you can release a game that's new gen, but also you can sell more copies because you have an old gen version too, so everybody can buy it.
Yeah. PS4 has 114 million consoles out there. Why wouldn't you want a piece of that
Yeah.
luscious cake that Ben keeps referring to?
And
Oh man, I can't wait.
backward compatibility and smart delivery and things like that are awesome. And that makes it so that like, oh, I only have an Xbox One. I'm going to buy Cyberpunk when it comes out. And then whenever I get my Xbox Series X, I can just get the free upgrade. That's a really awesome incentive to make sure that people don't want to like just, be trigger shy about buying a game.
And not everybody can buy a game at launch too. I feel like that's really important. Like I feel like doing cross-generational releases, while sometimes it sucks, like Dragon Age Inquisition was cross-generational, but the DLC wasn't. And the DLC is so important to what's going into the new game. If you haven't played Trespasser, you're going to be very lost. But Trespasser only came out on this generation, and it also tied up all of the loose ends from Dragon Age 2. So, like, I feel like that should have been integrated into the story, but it wasn't because they said it was too developmentally risky to do it on 360 because the 360 version did not play well, neither did the PlayStation 3 version. But I feel like, I think I like it. I like the fact that they're doing this. And like Brian said, the backwards compatibility, the play anywhere, it's really, accessibility is such a big conversation right now with disabilities, with impairments. But a lot of times in that conversation is financial accessibility. And, people are so up in arms about a $10 price hike with games and anything like that. Well, not everybody can drop $600, $500 on a new console and peripherals on day one, especially with the holidays coming up. It's just not doable. So I feel like doing the cross generational is the most gamer friendly thing they could do. But also, then with this generation in particular, there was that report that developers didn't get the Xbox Series X developer kit until much, 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 much later than PlayStation 5 dev kits went out. And when you've got that, it's hard to really target something for next gen only if they don't have the right tools to do that. And if they kind of push for it anyway, then I feel like that's just a disaster waiting to happen, and that's going to blow up, and there's there's no incentive to do that when you know there's a lot of people that won't be getting consoles in day one, especially with the shortages.
This will be a quick one, I think. Matt from Near Philly writes in. They say, "Hello, I have a hypothetical game for PC gamers. I think everybody can play this game though, so don't feel bad if you're not a PC gamer. I'll just say that. Good news. Everyone, including Nintendo and Sony, want in on the PC craze. You guys heard about this craze that's going on?
Master Race, I've heard.
Yeah, it's PC, man.
Yeah.
It's huge. Everybody's got to get in on it. It's the future, I tell you. So which game out of each of these pairings is going to sell more copies on PC? So we have to predict what game we think would sell more copies on PC. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Bloodborne or a Demon Souls remaster? What's going to sell more on PC?
Bloodborne.
I think Bloodborne as well.
Yeah, I mean, Bloodborne would be, definitely.
Could you
I know-
imagine being able to mod Bloodborne? Like hit somebody with a noodle instead of a big
Oh, that'd be cool.
broadsword?
That'd be dope.
That'd
I
be
mean,
dope.
Demon Souls is, everybody's talking about it right now because, the remaster just came out for PS5, but
It's great.
I think everybody agrees that Bloodborne's kind of like the better game still. What about this? Breath of the Wild or Ghost of Tsushima?
Breath of the
Ghost of
Wild.
Tsushima.
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
A Zelda game on PC, people would lose their minds.
But people are already
Yeah, I
playing
think-
it on PC. There's already a complete, I mean, it's not legal, but people there, I think the concurrent player count is at like just shy of 1 million of the PC emulator for Breath of the Wild. Not
That's
that I'm
wild.
condoning that.
Yeah.
Game
And
of
that
Thrones does
doesn't-
not condone emulators.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. Don't twist that. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, there's already an accessibility there.
I mean,
versus there's no emulator for Ghost of
I
Tsushima.
think
Yeah, isn't that a sign that it would do well?
in this hypothetical situation, I think we should disregard people who have also illegally obtained the game.
If we're disregarding basic PC practice, because we're all a bunch of pirates, not we, them. I definitely have not done
Good save.
that. But I feel like if we're disregarding the emulator and the fact that it's got almost 1 million players on it, then yes, Breath of the Wild. But I feel like
Even
I mean, our suspension of disbelief is already at the point where Nintendo is putting Zelda on PC. So I think
Yeah,
that
I mean, I can't imagine this illegal mod or release or whatever would like deter people from buying Breath of the Wild if it were legal either, personally. Okay, next one. Uncharted trilogy versus the Metroid trilogy. I think there's a typo here because there's 4 Uncharted games.
what's the fourth?
well, the plus
Five,
Lost
if you-
Legacy
yeah,
Yeah, 5 if you count Lost Legacy.
and Golden Abyss.
you
6.
should, because Lost Legacy was amazing.
I assume they mean the Metroid Prime trilogy as well.
Definitely Uncharted, I would say.
I kind of think Uncharted
I
too.
do too.
Think of the mods.
Yeah.
The big
Yeah.
reason people play on PC is the mod. Like, yeah, it looks better, but like the mods.
For sure.
Having Nathan Drake go up against Thomas the Tank Engine would be epic.
That would be dope.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one's interesting. Spider-Man, I assume they're talking about the 2018 Insomniac game. It's not clear,
Yeah.
but the Spider-Man Complete Edition or Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Ooh.
That
I
one's
think
actually
Pokemon.
hard.
I think hesitantly I say Pokemon because once again now Liana's in my head about mods, but like being able to expand the wild area and like I'm sure people would have found ways to put their own Pokemon in there. I feel like someone would have made before Nintendo shuts it down. I feel like someone would make like an MMO off of that or like like
Oh, yeah.
like that kind of stuff. That's kind of the fantasy, right? So I think Pokemon.
How many people would just put their own cat in the game?
Probably,
Honestly, isn't that a good idea? They should like totally like on some Pokemon thing allow you to like, okay, just put your pet in the game somehow.
that would be dope.
There's
Wouldn't that be
there's a-
awesome?
yeah.
There's a promoted
I like that.
Instagram ad that keeps popping up where it's like you can take a picture of your cat and they'll make it into a Pokemon card.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
That's like the best
I want that.
Christmas gift ever.
That'd be
Yeah.
a great Christmas
Well,
Yeah,
if they want us
gift
to
if I were
talk
in-
more about it, they can pay for an ad on the Game Informer show.
That's
But
true.
until
We're not
then,
going to say that.
next
Smooth as butter.
Okay. This is also a weird one because I don't think it's quite a fair comparison, but Ring Fit Adventure versus PlayStation VR. Like, I don't know. PlayStation VR is a peripheral. It's not really a
I feel
game.
like Ring Fit
so-
Adventure because there are better VR
Yeah.
peripherals on PC already.
Yeah, there's already like
Yes,
VR
VR.
headsets for PC that you would want to use over the PlayStation one.
And I was gonna say,
And this VR is very not well done.
well,
Yeah, PSVR is the entry level, but like then you have like Oculus Quest and
yeah,
even like Vive just destroys the PSVR. And I'm a PSVR owner, so
Even if
Yeah,
it's even if it's games too, like what's the exclusive to PSVR? Iron Man VR? Like, is that it?
The Astro, what was
Astro
Rescue
Rescue Bot.
Mission? That's
Heard it's
actually a
great.
really good game
I've heard it's
and totally
really
worth
good.
playing.
Astro
I
Bot
wish,
It is
I wish
good.
they would bring it out on something that was a better headset. Okay, Final Fantasy VII Remake or Super Mario Odyssey.
I got
Oh,
Stuffy butt, nude mod, stuffy butt, Final Fantasy 7. Please do it.
it took a
Man,
turn.
I don't know.
You know, I bet if you Google image search that, you'd probably be able to find something, Liana.
I'm sure there's a
Do
website
it
for
for
that.
the booty. Do it for the booty.
Um, I
What do you
would.
saying about Mario?
That's a tough
Hey,
one.
yeah.
He doesn't even have nipples. He's got nothing.
He had nipples.
Don't body shame Mario.
They were like photoshopped out in that Odyssey commercial. Like he had no nipples.
Poor
What is
plumber.
he? He's not a plumber. What is he?
He's
This is
Mario,
so
man.
funny. This is a
I kind of got to give it to Nintendo, I feel like. Just because like it's so the novelty of having any Nintendo game on a PC just feels like I think so many people who aged out of video games would be like, "Oh, I can get Mario on my PC now?" Like, yeah, I'll totally do that.
It's
Um,
a tough one because those are both really great, really beloved games with strong followings. I feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake is a lot more likely to come to PC, but
With the combat would work so nicely too on PC on mouse and keyboard.
yeah.
I mean, I
All right,
think that-
final one. You guys ready?
yes.
Or you want to talk more about
I was
Mario?
gonna say Odyssey. I'm gonna say Odyssey, even
Was
though
it-
I think
Yeah, I think that's the right call.
that's the closest one out of
Nipples.
all of them. I think.
We could mod nipples on him. Give him what he deserves.
Finally. Can you mod some nipples onto me?
Yes.
I might have a
always.
condition. I went wakeboarding once. It wasn't good.
Oh no.
Okay. Final comparison. God of War versus Animal Crossing.
Oh,
Animal
Ugh.
Crossing, I think.
yeah. That's the first one that I'm like, okay, I don't really know.
I think Animal Crossing, like God of War, is one of the best games of last gen, and it totally fits in with the PC crowd. But like Animal Crossing has become like a full-on phenomenon.
It's iconic.
And the multiplayer I feel like would be so much better, or at least connecting to it. Oh,
The only deterrent that would put in Animal Crossing's favor is how they handled the Horizon Zero Dawn PC port, because that was garbage.
oh no.
It was so garbage.
Mm.
I was actually supposed to review it, and I messaged PR saying I can't review this game.
Oh wow.
It was so bad. And maybe that was just my experience. So if you played it and it worked for you, that's great. I have liquid cooling. I have a 1080. I have a really good setup. I don't know what it was, but it was so buggy and broken and just unenjoyable. And Horizon Zero Dawn is arguably one of my favorite things that come out of this last gen. So that
For
was
sure.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So if it was like that, if the God of War port was like that, then I would
Then
definitely
no.
say. But Animal Crossing would be so great because if
Yeah.
you could do it on PC, then you could do it on your laptop.
Oh
And if you do it on
yeah.
your laptop, then because you can already take it with your Nintendo Switch. But if like you're a parent and your kid's playing on the Nintendo Switch, like I don't know, I just feel like the novelty of it. But then I don't think Nintendo would. I mean, obviously these are hypotheticals, but I don't think Nintendo would ever do that because they're so big about putting the hammer down on anybody that mods the Nintendo Switch version of getting like the hacked items, and they're so quick to remove it and so quick to kind of punish the accounts that if you think it's bad on Switch,
Correct. But
welcome to PC, boys. Like,
yeah. I don't know. I think AC for all the points Leon
I think
made,
it's Animal Crossing.
Alright,
Yeah, just going
yeah.
with the Nintendo novelty again.
for sure.
yeah.
All right, that wraps up our email section. Thanks for writing in, everybody. If you want to send us an email, send it to podcast@gameinformer.com. We'll take your questions, games, whatever you want to send us. We're also accepting character rankings for our meaningless character rankings and required reading lists. So keep those coming. We'll try to get to them all eventually, I swear. That brings us to the last segment of our show, Get Wrecked,
Correct.
where we recommend stuff to check out. Leanna, what do you got to recommend?
There was an awesome stream that you guys did of Phasmophobia, which I was sad that I missed, but I really, really liked it. And then we have a lot of cool Assassin's Creed coverage. If you like Dungeons and Dragons, there's an article about how you can actually see Dungeons and Dragons in Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
I love when I get a chance to do video reviews. I think we have some amazing writers, as you all know. But I got a chance to take the the lovely words of Mr. Brian Shea and put them to video. And I think it's great for a great game. So go check out the Immortals Fenyx Rising video review on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Game Informer.
Brian, you want to recommend anything?
So we had a long weekend last week because of the Thanksgiving holiday, and we put up a ton. I measured it, a ton of
So
features.
much.
And I'm just looking through it right now. Like there are so many features. I mean, I liked Jay, one of our newer editors, a thing about why Persona 5 Royal is worth the long replay. I personally really liked that feature. I worked with him on that. So I reviewed Persona 5 Royal for us. It's one of my favorite games of the year, even though it's it's a re-release technically, but it adds like 30 hours of new content. So it's totally worth the replay. I agree with his piece. Go check it out, GameInformer.com. But there's also a ton of other things. I'm just scrolling through the list right here. It's more than our features landing page initially loads. Everything from Jeff Cork ranting about why Assassin's Creed had to bring back the awful paper chases to Matt Miller talking about the kind of therapeutic feeling of like Fuser and using it as an escape away from the troubles of 2020. And I also agree with that. I reviewed Fuser for us. It is such a fun game, especially like if you're into like the magic that Harmonix kind of brings, like that really magical touch that Harmonix brings to their different musical experiences. Like they always have some sort of musical implementation into their game. I cannot recommend Fuser enough. You might be like me, where you saw Fuser and we're like, oh, it's just like a new DJ hero, right? Because it's living out the DJ fantasy. You're performing sets on like in front of large festival crowds, but it is completely different. You're taking the stems of these different songs and combining them. So it's like I had the synth line of Billie Eilish's Bad Guy with the vocals of Smash Mouth's All Star and the bass line of Donna Summer's Hot Stuff and the drums of Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name. And somehow it all came together to make a audibly pleasing experience. So go check out that piece that Matt Miller wrote or my review on GameInformer.com. And also Fuser. It's super fun. Totally recommend.
What'd you get for Fuser?
An 8.75.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, I've been messing around with that. It's a fun, neat little thing. It's a fun toy more than it is like a game. Like I just still love messing around with it.
Yeah, the campaign is just a thinly veiled tutorial, but like once you get into like the freestyle stuff and like hosting festivals with like randos on the internet, like it's so much fun to like be like, all right, now it's your turn to get up and perform for like 2 minutes, and now it's my turn, and now it's this other guy's turn. It's like it's fun to see like what other people come up with, and then like kind of finding that sweet spot. But like I was surprised by how often like the creations that I just randomly threw together sounded good. I never expected like all those weird concoctions to come together and actually sound like a song that is fun to listen to.
Definitely.
Great. Cool. All right. Well, that wraps up the show proper. So that's it for us. But we're going to be right back with the interview with the director of Immortals. So stick around and listen to that. If not, see you next week. Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm Ben Reeves. I'm still hosting. They haven't kicked me out of the chair yet, so I'm here. I got a special guest with me here today, Scott Phillips, the game director for Immortals Fenyx Rising. How's it going?
Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great. And then, of course, Alyx is still hanging around for the interview because, Alyx, you got to check out this game recently because it's on our cover.
Correct. Yeah, we've done a full month of some awesome coverage with the help of the team at Ubisoft, and there's some really great stuff up there, so be sure to go check it out. And I'd like to thank you guys again for helping us with that, Scott.
That was my pleasure.
Good.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, Scott, I want to start by talking about your personal history in development. How'd you get started in the industry? How'd you end up at Ubisoft?
Well, I've been playing video games for a long, long time. So, started with I think my very first system was the Atom or Colecovision, one of those two. And then moved into Nintendo and so on onto PC. And when I was about a teenager, I figured out, hey, I'd really like to make games. I started modding things like Doom and Duke Nukem 3D and Quake and figuring out how to do those things. After college, I got a job as I was initially hired as a cinematic animator for Volition, which is in central Illinois, makers of Red Faction and Saints Row. Funnily enough, in my first week there, they decided to outsource all of the cinematic work So I was sort of like, oh, good, I got hired just to get fired immediately. Great. So basically, I
Oh,
just went
no.
around and figured out what can I do? What can I do to stay employed? Like, can I make models? Can I animate? Can I help with what can I help with? And so I sort of there fell in love with animation because I really loved the impact that it had on the gameplay. How you move and how you control and how reactive it is really key to how fun a game is. And so I moved into animation, and then after animation, I got the chance to move into design because I worked on a. If you ever played the Punisher game made by Volition and THQ, oh man, 15
I
years ago.
did, yeah. That was the one where you could like smash people's faces into like
Bingo.
I don't know, refrigerators or yeah, pretty much anything.
And so that was me. That was my system and my idea. I worked really closely with a animation programmer, and we made this awesome interrogation system. And so I was able to move into design because of that, because I said, I'd really like to start in design. Got into Saints Row 2, where I was one of the design directors on that game. Saints Row 3 and Saints Row 4, I was design director on those games. And then at that point, I started looking around because I felt like I had sort of done everything I could at Volition, and I felt like I needed to expand my horizons or try different things. And so I got a call from Ubisoft Quebec and talked with the creative director and a producer on Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Came up, visited. I really liked it. I love the project. I love the team. I love the size of the studio. So I moved up. Was game director on Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Game director on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was sort of a dream for me to make this big open world RPG. Was the sort of game that I love, and so it was awesome to be able to make that. And then we just finished Immortals Fenyx Rising, which will launch in the next couple of weeks. So that's my history in video games.
Will we see Phoenix pushing people's heads into like furnaces and other things? Is that you going to bring that game mechanic back?
No, that didn't necessarily fit with Greek mythology. Though Greek mythology is very often dark and full of bad deeds. No, we didn't replicate those elements. We wanted to stay a little bit lighter than the Punisher.
Did you
Save
ever
for the sequel? I get it.
Did you ever have a build where you nudged a couple of the other people at Ubi? You're like, hey, this is here. Kratos did it. We can do it too.
I want to talk about Immortals a lot here in a minute, but you said you worked on the Saints Row series. Just curious, like from the inside, what was it like to watch that series grow from kind of like this GTA clone basically into what it was, which is just off the wall wacky. I can't think of another game that is that stupid in a good way. Like is that just like bonkers? It's a fun series.
It was fun. Like I started on Saints Row 2 while Saints Row 1 was still in development. So we had sort of a good sense of where they were going, that they had a lot of humor in the gameplay with, like, I remember one of the first things I ever saw of the game was insurance fraud. Was basically the activity where you ragdoll and throw yourself into stuff and you earn money based on, how damaging you are, how high you up when flying. And that was, for me, one of the first moments where I realized, like, oh, okay, I get what this game is. It's similar to GTA, but it's a lot more fun and lighthearted. And then, seeing from Saints Row 2, we maintained a similar tone, I think, to Saints Row 1. And then when I was able to take control on Saints Row 3 and drive more of that, I wanted to sort of go even further over the top, like really internalize that and make that part of the brand and make that over the top element key to what it was. And I think with Saints Row 3, I feel like we really hit something special. I'm very, very proud of Saints Row 3 and what we achieved. And Saints Row 4, I think we went way beyond over the top. And then they continued. Like I didn't work on any of the additional. I think there was a Gad Out of Hell and a couple other things that I didn't work on, but they seem to continue that trajectory into outer space. So it's been interesting to see just how sort of it was normal, a bit crazier, and oh my god, this is just insane.
Yeah, and now they've opened up Pandora's box. You can never go back.
Well, but I think the mindset was always at some point we're going to have to reset here. So I'm interested to see. I still have friends back at the studio, but they're not telling me anything about what they're working on. So it's interesting for me from the outside perspective to see what they do with Saints Row in the future.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, let's talk about Immortals because that's the game you're working on now. The story is the myth, the legend, right? Is that you guys came up with this idea when working on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and there was a bug where a bunch of Cyclopses appeared in your boat. Is it as simple as that? And you're like, hey, wait, what if there was more myth in this game?
Well, it's not as simple as that, but it's definitely, that was for me one of the key moments where I remember people on the team talking about like, okay, this could be the future of what we do. This could be something really unique. And so overall, I remembered that story, and then we went back and we watched the video, and it was a bit cooler than that actually. In that the the feature, however you want to describe it, was that you could. And so in Odyssey, you could recruit most any enemy in the world. You could make them join your ship crew. So at the time, you could knock out the Cyclops and recruit him. So put him on your ship, and then he would walk around on your ship, and he would be one of your crew members. And when you were boarding, he would jump over to the other ship and start fighting the other team. You could also call him, because in Odyssey you had the ability to call in one of your team for hire. So you could go into a fort and call in a Cyclops to attack your enemies. So it was actually really, really cool, and it was, I think, the first germ of an idea for hey, we should really focus on mythology. Like we only touch on it a little bit in Odyssey, but let's make a whole game about it, and that's where the Immortals Fenyx Rising comes from.
Sure. What was holding you guys back from actually just doing that in AC? I mean, the Cyclopses are in the game already, so you've already sort of crossed that line. But what said like, no, that's going too far if they're in our boat?
I have a feeling if we would have brought that to Mr. Yves Guillemot, he would have probably said no. That's my feeling.
It has to be in the pitch document.
Back. We censored ourselves. We said, for the better of the brand, let's keep it as authentic, historical.
Fair enough. Well, you guys announced it was called Gods and Monsters when you announced it in 2019, which was not long after the release of Assassin's Creed. So was there some overlap in development there, or are you guys just insanely fast at cranking out that tech demo?
Yeah, I think we did not overlap the development. So this started, I mean, the ideas were there, but really we started developing it after Assassin's Creed Odyssey was complete. I think at that point, the team was really fine-tuned, like with the success of Odyssey and this, it was our second Assassin's Creed as the lead developer. So we were really psyched about the success that we had with Odyssey, and I think there was a lot of energy within the studio to be able to quickly turn that around and get something. And I think with what we were doing with Immortals Fenyx Rising, in that we were approaching the combat in a different way, approaching the traversal in a different way, adding this new pillar of puzzle gameplay, there was a lot of opportunity for people to come in with fresh ideas and to really try things that they had sort of had to hold back from in the past, where now it was, no, it's mythology, it's fantastical, it's over the top. We can really take things to a larger level and go big with everything that we're going to do and not hold ourselves back.
I think one of the things that in our pre-release coverage and just seeing the game, I think one of the things you guys have emphasized is the humor of the game. And I'm curious, especially coming from a darker story like Assassin's Creed, what kind of challenges came up from that?
I think you can tell a difference when you play Assassin's Creeds made by Montreal or made by Sophia, and us made by here in Quebec. We all have our sort of different take on how the tone should be portrayed. In Quebec, we I think have a tone that's a little bit more lighthearted, even in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where there's some sillier things that happen. Yes, the main storyline is very serious, but there's some sillier things that happen. And so with Immortals Fenyx Rising, we wanted to approach it in more lighthearted, lean more into having fun with it, rather than it feeling like it's dire and dour and very serious. We wanted to go with this tone that very much matched. I think the best description I've ever heard of it was ancient Greek Guardians of the Galaxy, where if you think of the Guardians of the Galaxy, I'll be honest, as a viewer, I was not sold on that movie before I saw it, because okay, there's a raccoon that talks and there's a tree.
That didn't sell you?
Okay. That didn't necessarily appeal to me instantly, but then seeing the movie and the soundtrack and all the way that they approach the story, that it's it's the end of the universe if they fail, but they're still going to have fun and they're going to joke, and I think that really was a fantastic success for them, and I think for us with Immortals Fenyx Rising, that same tone is successful for us, especially now with obviously no one could have predicted what 2020 would be like, but I think we could all use something that's a little bit more focused on fun and a little bit more uplifting and lighthearted while still having these epic end of the universe stakes. I think we could all use a game like that.
For sure.
Are you pulling on your Saints Row skills for some of the humor, or do you feel like it's a different type of humor?
I think it's a different type of humor. I can't attribute any of the humor in the game to myself. That's from 99% of that is from our lead writer Jeffrey Yohalem, and his great knowledge of ancient Greece and ancient Greek mythology. He was really able to bring a level of depth to the humor that is continuously impresses me in how many levels you can go into a lot of the jokes. Like initially you might find it funny just on the surface, but then if you think about it a little bit more and a little bit more, and the mythology, you really get a lot of levels into it. Whereas I think Saints Row was really funny, but there weren't necessarily as many of those. Though I think the lead writer on those games, Steve Jaros, did a fantastic job as well.
Cool. Was it? I know because I know when we talked to some of the developers behind The Last of Us, they talked about how they delighted in writing drama. And giving your background, it seems like this would be more fun. But was this more fun to write for you and the team?
I think it's different. It's a bit. I think humor is more challenging than drama. It's very easy to imagine, sort of revenge stories, but telling a good joke is really tough. Like comedians are masters of their art, and I think it's really really a big challenge to especially get a joke that, or even not even a joke, but just like a lighthearted tone that feels acceptable to a wide audience is a huge challenge. Whereas I think something like revenge and those more dramatic elements, or those personal dramas are a little bit easier, because I think sort of everyone has the same sort of base of emotion on those things, whereas humor is a little bit harder to make sure that everyone feels sort of gets the joke, or everyone sort of understands it at the same level. I wouldn't say this game is necessarily, it's not continuously funny. It's still again, Guardians of the Galaxy is a great example where it's, yes, there are humorous moments, but there's also very serious moments, and the stakes are huge, and that all of those things come together to make a really great feeling game.
For sure.
Sure. You guys announced, as we said earlier, you announced under the name Gods and Monsters, and since then you've changed it to Immortals Fenyx Rising. Can you speak to some of the methodology or the rationale you went through when deciding on the name change?
I don't know when that happened, but I think as we came to the end of 2019, and we were told, our release date was originally in, I think, March of 2020. When we came to the end of 2019, we were told, okay, we want you to take more time. We want you to improve the quality of the game, to spend more and make it better, make it a better and bigger game. As part of that, we reevaluated sort of what we had done so far with the art, what we had done with the narrative, and what we had done with the gameplay. Reevaluating all of those things meant that we were going to spend the next now almost a year from when we got that notification that we were going to get extended. I think we had to reevaluate what the game was about. We changed things like who the narrators were, which sort of fundamentally changed some of the tone of the game, changed the visual style as well to match the narrative better. And then we added a lot and improved a lot to the gameplay to add more depth and things like adding more complexity to enemies and things along those lines. I think when we encapsulated all of that and thought about, okay, what is this game about? If we're lucky enough to do more in the future, where would we want to go? What would we want to start as the base of this? it became clear, I think, that we needed to revisit the title and how we're going to approach using that title to set people's initial thoughts of what this could be. And I think that's where Immortals, as the idea of the gods, and then Fenyx Rising as that element of, we wanted to focus on Phoenix's journey throughout this story to where we go at the end. So it's always a bit organic, but a lot of it came from the idea that we were going to get extended, or we knew we were extended. So, okay, let's revisit the entire game, the title included.
For sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a playable build coming into that March date then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We were, we showed at E3 2019, very early, obviously, but we were still well into development. I think we would have shipped on our original date. So then we sort of had to take what we had and move pieces around, add in new pieces, and expand the game. But yeah, we had a full play session with the team, with external playtesters that we brought in I think it was in November of 2019.
Wow.
So we were really able to gather a ton of data on, okay, we were about to ship this game. Okay, let's look at what we can do to expand it and make it better in the future.
Sure. One of the new elements that you guys are explored is puzzles, which you haven't messed around with a ton in, the Assassin's Creed games you worked on. So what and what I heard was that when you said, hey, we want to make this game and we don't have a lot of puzzles in it, some of the higher ups at Ubisoft were like, whoa, wait a minute, you sure you want to do that? Like, puzzles are hard to do. Was it hard to actually implement those puzzles? What was that journey like?
Yeah, it was definitely an initial uphill battle. We were nervous. Some of us were, about saying the word puzzle because it has a lot of potential baggage with it. It's hard for me to remember exactly why we chose puzzles. I think we wanted something that made the world feel interactive and feel epic. We like this idea that there were, some of our, like the I think it's the Palace of Aphrodite is a huge area, very, very big POI. And we love the idea of taking things from one area to another and solving things and unlocking something that unlocks something else. And this idea that you're sort of walking around within the puzzle. But it definitely took a long time of prototyping. I think within a couple months, maybe 2 months, we had a good set of examples of like what our Vaults of Tartarus would become, what puzzles in the world would be like, some of our fundamentals of what it would be. We had people from that had worked on Prince of Persia, so they had some base in puzzles. But yeah, in general, we didn't have a great base of a knowledge on puzzles. But it was a challenge that the team definitely took, and I think delivered on very strong. I think the world is in Immortals Fenyx Rising is really fun because there's always things around every corner, and there's good rewards. You want to get those rewards. You want to take them back and upgrade yourself, and so you're always sort of enticed. I think one good example of where we very quickly had an idea for a puzzle that turned out, I think, really, really strong were the Odysseus trials of using guided arrows to shoot through axe heads and sort of challenge your ability to guide these arrows to a target. And it came from, honestly, from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We had guided arrows, but they were always sort of a fad, or not a fad, but like something that you didn't need to do. It was cool, but it was unnecessary. And so there were people pulling off nice trick shots on YouTube and showing like, oh man, I'm going to shoot it through this window and then over the toilet and then into this guy's head. Cool. Why?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? So we wanted to build something that really challenged that as a gameplay mechanic, and I think it turned out really well as a really fun use of something that we couldn't necessarily find a great use for in the past.
You guys, earlier on, we talked about how this mythological setting has really set yourself apart from previous works and stuff like that. But I'm curious, on like a combat level, what has this game's tone and world and mythology opened up to you guys that you couldn't have maybe done on a previous game?
Well, I think the airborne nature of it is really different. Taking it into the third dimension of, you're not just on the X and the Y, you're also on the Z. You're able to move around and fight against aerial enemies or enemies that are really, really big. I think that's really unique to what we've done with Immortals Fenyx Rising. It always reminds me of a quote from or something that someone else at Ubisoft Quebec has said in the past of like, I don't want to be fighting toes, because they can just, you imagine a creature that big that all you can do is just hit their big toe to hurt them. So we wanted to have them be accessible. So we had to find the right size for these creatures. We have some that are really, really big, some that are more medium size. I think with the combat, we wanted to build on top of some of the elements. Like honestly, it was a bit of not a struggle, but a challenge to prove what we wanted to do with combat in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because it's a bit more over the top, a bit more fantastical than had been done in the past. We felt like we had a good justification with the Spear of Leonidas being a first Civ artifact, so it sort of fit within the mythology of the franchise. But we were always sort of, we knew there was a like, don't push it too far, or you're gonna get you're gonna get slapped. But with Immortals Fenyx Rising, we knew, okay, let's embrace this. Let's make these huge effects, big impacts. The enemies go flying hundreds of meters in the distance and turn to dust when they're defeated. Just really invest ourselves fully in this fantastical mythological setting and make sure that the combat feels appropriate to that.
I'd love to talk about exploration as well, which is a big tentpole, I want to say, with the Assassin's Creed series, but you guys are definitely taking a different inspiration. People compared it to Breath of the Wild, obviously, because it's a little more free form. How would you say you approached exploration and just like letting people explore the world and find just fun things to do in it?
To be honest, it's easy. It's a bit easy, and there's sort of a push or an inertia to front load to the player as much information about the world as possible, to give them lists, to give them giant markers to show every single thing that's available to them. And we had felt that, like, I think we had a good exploration experience in Odyssey, but I felt like with Immortals Fenyx Rising, we could do something very different that was almost, this might sound harsh, but almost anti-Ubisoft. Like it's anti what we had done in the past in a way, in that I didn't want to give the player a lot of information. I wanted the world to be visible and interesting and calling out to you through, using this more fantastical setting, rather than using the HUD and using more gamey almost elements. It's more about, I wanted the player to feel like they needed to go out and seek things in the world, rather than us constantly saying, "Hey, I'm here, come." And it's a bit,
yeah. You don't have to be needy. Game doesn't have to be needy. I'm already playing you.
play me. But it's a challenge. Like we want, we know players will enjoy these things. We want them to be visible. We want you to engage with it. And so we're almost fighting ourselves when we, there's always this worry of wasted effort. Like, there were tons of things to do, but I never found any of them. That's scary. Like as a game developer of an open world game, like it's scary when people just say, "Oh, I went from quest to quest to quest, and I didn't do anything else." And that's, from Saints Row, from any setting that you can imagine, that's one of our biggest fears. Is we build these worlds with lots of things to do, but then all players do is just beeline from quest to quest to quest, and they don't engage with anything else. And so we took a different tack in that we wanted to push things less to the player. It was certainly a risk. I think it definitely paid out in some ways. In other ways, we did need to, in the end, promote things more, but we could do it, I think, diegetically within the world, because it's more fantastical. We didn't need to put as many UI markers as we might have in the past on things. We could be a little bit more hands off and hope and expect that players will be enticed to go find these things.
Yeah. And as I said, like a lot of people have compared this to Breath of the Wild. How do you guys feel about that comparison? Is that a game that you looked at quite a bit during development? Are you excited that, hey, this is Ubisoft's Breath of the Wild? Obviously, you want it to be its own thing.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I mean, you can't say there's no one that wouldn't want to be compared to a 10 out of 10 game that's considered, a benchmark masterpiece for video games. Like, geez, I mean, of course you want to be consider, even if we're not considered in the same realm, once we come out and people get their hands on the game. I think we've done something really special. I think definitely I've been personally inspired throughout my entire career by Zelda games and by Nintendo games as well. I'm inspired by a lot of different video games, a lot of different movies and books, and just real world games. I think I try to take something, I hope, from everything that I interact with, and we want to always build on top of and do better. I find myself, I want to know what everyone else in the industry is doing. I want to play all the open world games. I want to know what's the hot new thing, what's the thing that maybe is not working and people are falling out of love with. What are they falling in love with? And then have our own take on those elements. I think obviously we played Breath of the Wild, yes, for sure. And I think there are certain things you can take from Assassin's Creed Odyssey as well. Obviously, we came fresh off of that, so we wanted to make our own unique game. Are people going to see other games in it? Yes, absolutely. I think that's the easiest way for us usually to communicate on something that we haven't seen before. Is it's like this and this. Okay, I get it. But I think it's also, I can remember when what was it, probably 20 plus years ago when everything was a Doom clone. Okay, yeah. But at some point we moved past like that. Okay, it's not a Doom clone, but everybody wants to use that game to associate to it. And I think that's fine. I understand why people do it. I fully get it. But I do think with Immortals Fenyx Rising, it is its own special game. And I hope we get to keep doing more with this franchise and show people what we can do.
Zooming out a little bit to a hardware level, obviously the new consoles are out, the Series X and the PS5. What kind of are you guys talking about? What kind of either visual upgrades or more tactile upgrades you guys are doing for the new systems yet? And I'd love to know specifically too, are you guys embracing the adaptive triggers on the PS5 controller, the haptic feedback, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so next gen, we have one programmer who absolutely loves it. One of our best tech guys, and he's constantly sending updates of all the great things he's able to Hey, I unlocked this on the PS5 and on the Xbox Series X, so now we can go way further in terms of number of FX particles and the amount that we're rendering grass and certain things in the distance, so you get this better, more animated feeling to the world because we're able to move things at a much further distance. At a base level, the game is available on those consoles with 4K 60 FPS. You can really make it look amazing, and especially with the art style that we have, very vibrant colors, very active and interactive world. I think it's really cool to play on those next gen consoles. We do use the haptic feedback on the PS5. I can't say that I've used it a ton myself, but I do think it's a cool thing to see what developers are going to continue to do with that in the future. And I think that's the same with the sort of the base level on the new consoles of having the SSD is great for open world games, especially having almost no load times is fantastic. But it's going to make us need to rethink things like loading screen tips.
Yeah.
Have no time to read them, so it's definitely a blessing. But we'll need to think about what opportunities and what it brings.
The game's coming out December 3rd, so it's right around the corner. Like you said, new consoles, old consoles, Switch, PC. You guys are even putting it out on Stadia, which is crazy. So shouldn't be hard to find. You guys have some post-launch support as well?
Yeah, so we just announced the DLC plan. We have 3 big DLCs coming up in addition to all sorts of live content over the course of the next several months. The first big DLC is about new vaults, new challenges for the player. The second DLC is actually a whole new setting in Chinese mythology. And then DLC 3 will be actually something really new and something that came directly from the team, which is a sort of an isometric top-down view playable version of the game. So it's a different mode, a different story, a different main character, and you get to play it in a whole different direction. It's something that came from the team on what we called Phoenix Days, where the team got to sort of once every 2 weeks they get a day to just sort of spend the day on what they think will be effective and helpful for the project. And could be a really cool idea that might not necessarily have happened otherwise. And a group on the team built a top-down view of the game, and because of our three-dimensional sort of acrobatic feeling, it's a little bit like Diablo, but it's a jumping game as well. So it's a really unique style and really fresh, I think.
Well, Scott, we really appreciate having you on the podcast. Thanks. Nice work so far, and obviously you guys are in the final sprint, but you're almost there. So good luck finishing the game, and we can't wait to play the final thing.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It was great to be here.
Great. Thanks again, Scott.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you as well out there for watching or listening to this episode of the show. Please like and subscribe, or subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the magazine, subscribe to anything really at this point. And
Anything, everything.
Come back next week. Yeah, please. Come back next week. We'll have another one for you. Game on.